The morning sun spills through the blinds, casting warm stripes across Amara James' living room. She's standing barefoot on the cool tile floor, sipping lukewarm coffee and listening to her 6-year-old son, Micah, hum the Spider-Man theme as he zips his action figure across the couch. It's a quiet Saturday, peaceful, the kind of morning she fought so hard to create for him. This neighborhood was supposed to be a fresh start. She'd moved into Rosewood Heights just 4 months ago, one of the few black families in a sprawling, mostly white, gated community just outside of Atlanta. It was the kind of place that boasted family values, manicured lawns, and good schools. Coded language she understood all too well. She worked 2 jobs to afford the down payment. Sacrificed, prayed, told herself she wasn't just buying a house. She was buying safety. And for a while it seemed to be true. Micah, shoes, she calls, peeking into the living room. We've got groceries to grab before this place runs out of oat milk again. Yes, ma'am, he chirps, sliding off the couch, his braids bouncing as he runs to the door. The plan is simple. A quick trip to the store, maybe a drive-through smoothie as a treat. She grabs her keys, slings her purse over her shoulder, and heads out to the driveway where her beat-up Toyota Camry sits baking in the Georgia heat. But then there's a note, tucked under the wiper blade, crisp and aggressive in tone, printed in bold Times New Roman like it's trying too hard to be polite. You are in violation of HOA Policy 4B, overnight parking in common driveways. This is your second warning. Her eyebrows pinch together. Second warning? She never received a first. Her car was parked in her own driveway, not a fire lane, not a visitor space. And yet, there it is, that sharp undercurrent of control disguised as protocol. She crumples the paper in her fist. Mommy! Micah's voice snaps her back. He's already in the back seat, buckling himself in. Just some HOA nonsense, baby, she mutters. Still, the note clings to her thoughts as she pulls out of the driveway. It's not the first time they've reminded her about rules. A week ago, she received an email about the height of her sunflowers. Too tall. Before that, a complaint about excessive noise, when Micah was outside playing with water balloons. She notices the looks sometimes. Tight smiles from neighbors that don't quite reach their eyes. The HOA president, Mr. Dalton, always makes a point to wave at everyone. Everyone but her. When he does acknowledge her, it's with that artificial tone. Over-enunciated, like he's trying to remind her that she's tolerated, not welcome. Still, Amara brushes it off. She has groceries to buy, a child to raise, a life to live. But something in her gut twists, like a warning whisper she can't quite hear yet. And as her car turns the corner, the eyes behind those blinds are already watching, plotting. The first real sign comes a week later. Amara is late getting home from work. Her shift at the hospital ran long, and traffic on I-285 was a nightmare. The sky is dusky when she finally pulls into Rosewood Heights, headlights illuminating her driveway. Only her driveway is empty. Her chest tightens. She slams the car in park, bolts out, heart pounding. The Camry's gone. Gone. She spins in place like she might have parked it somewhere else and forgotten, even though she knows she hasn't. Micah! She yells into the house as she unlocks the door, panic rising in her throat. He runs to her wide-eyed. Mommy! They took your car. Who? Her voice is shaking now. A big truck came. I saw it from the window. It was loud. The car was gone when I came back. Amara's stomach sinks. Towed? For what? She calls the number on the HOA bulletin she'd taped to the fridge, the same one that came with that passive-aggressive newsletter about lawn decor and community standards. A woman answers, chipper and soulless. Yes, Ms. James. Your vehicle was removed due to a third violation of overnight parking. It's clearly outlined in our bylaws. Third, Amara's voice cracks. I never got a first. Well, the woman replies, tone clipped now. As stated in your welcome packet. I never got a welcome packet. Silence. Then, you'll need to contact Premier Towing to retrieve your vehicle. It's no longer our concern. The line clicks dead. Micah tugs at her sleeve. Are we in trouble? No, baby, she says, kneeling down to hug him tightly. But inside, she's fuming. The next day, she walks to the HOA office herself, her phone already filled with photos. Her car properly parked, timestamps, even screenshots of past emails. She wants to face someone. She wants to see who did this. The HOA office is pristine, clinical, sterile gray walls and framed pictures of smiling families, none of whom look like hers. And then she sees him, Douglas Dalton, the HOA president. He's standing at the front desk, white polo tucked neatly into khaki slacks, clipboard in hand like he's running a Fortune 500 company instead of a suburban dictatorship. He sees her, and for a half second there's that flicker, recognition, and contempt. "I assume you're here about the tow," he says without greeting. Amara narrows her eyes. "You mean the illegal tow?" He smiles. It doesn't reach his eyes. "Ma'am, we enforce the rules equally for all residents. If you failed to read them thoroughly, that's not our fault." "All residents?" she asks, her voice low. "Because I counted 6 cars on my street parked the same way last night. None of them were towed." Dalton's eyes harden. "Perhaps if you focused more on following the rules and less on counting your neighbor's cars, you wouldn't be in this situation." There it is. No denial, no apology, just that smug, simmering entitlement, like she should be grateful to live here at all. As she walks out, heat burning beneath her skin, Amara doesn't just feel wronged. She feels watched. And she knows now, this isn't about a car. It never was. Amara doesn't sleep that night. She lies awake with the glow of her phone lighting her face, scrolling through the community Facebook group, flipping through post after post. Neighbors posting sunset photos, lost cats, a debate about fence colors, and then buried deep complaints about towing. But not just any complaints. They're all from black or brown residents. One woman, Tasha from Roseberry Lane, writes that her car was towed while she was unloading groceries. Another man claims he was cited for improper landscaping because his garden had too much mulch. The pattern is subtle, but unmistakable. They're targeting us. The next morning, Amara shows up at the HOA office again, this time with a printed list of community towing complaints and her phone ready to record. Micah's at school and her hands are steady. She's not scared anymore. She's angry. Dalton greets her with a smirk. "Back again. I want to see the violations you claim I committed," she says calmly. "All 3. He raises an eyebrow. "You'll have to submit a formal request. That can take up to 30 days. "I'm not leaving without them." He doesn't flinch. "You can stand there all day if you like, Ms. James, but this isn't a courtroom." "No," she says, stepping forward. "It's a neighborhood, and you're treating it like a plantation." That hits him. His jaw tightens, but his voice remains controlled. "That's an inappropriate accusation." "What's inappropriate?" she snaps. "Is towing a single mother's car while her child is watching from the window." He blinks. She caught him off guard. "I know about the other residents," she continues. "I've seen the complaints. The same rules being enforced differently, depending on who's living behind the door." Dalton recovers quickly. "If you have concerns, you're welcome to bring them up at the next board meeting. 2 weeks away. Convenient." She turns and walks out, heart thudding, filming his smug face over her shoulder. By that evening, she's assembled a group chat of 5 residents, all black or Latino, who've experienced similar harassment. They meet in her backyard, seated in lawn chairs beneath string lights, passing around copies of letters, fines, and blurry phone pics of tow trucks that came without warning. "This is a pattern," Tasha says, shaking her head. "And we all know it." Amara nods. "We're going to need proof. Dates, photos, witnesses. Every time a rule gets broken, but only certain people get punished." "What about the security cameras?" one man asks. "Aren't there some on the main roads?" "HOA controls the footage," Amara replies. "But if there's one thing I know, someone always saves a copy." She makes it her mission. She canvasses the street, knocking on doors politely. Most folks brush her off. One woman, older white, with thick glasses and a trembling voice, peeks through the screen door and whispers, "I've seen them towing your car. Twice. Once late at night. Didn't look right. But I didn't want to get involved. Please," Amara urges. "If you saw anything, you already are involved." She offers her number. 3 days later, a breakthrough. A teenage boy, maybe 16, knocks on her door. Hoodie, nervous eyes. "My dad's the one who runs the security cams for the HOA, he mutters. "He saves backups off-site. I grabbed this." He hands her a flash drive. "What's on it?" He shrugs. "I saw them towing your car. Your kid was still inside." Amara freezes. "What?" "Yeah." He climbed into the back seat while they were hooking it up. They didn't check. The breath leaves her body. That moment replays in her mind like a slow-motion nightmare. Micah running ahead, climbing into the car, waiting. She was just locking the door. She didn't see. She plugs in the drive. The footage is grainy, time-stamped. The tow truck pulls in. Micah climbs into the back seat, clearly visible through the window. The driver doesn't look, doesn't check, just hitches the car and pulls off. Amara watches, hands shaking. He was in the car. She hits record on her phone, capturing the screen, the timestamp, the license plate, everything. Her voice trembles with fury. This is child endangerment. This is criminal. Now she has more than suspicion. She has proof. And someone's going to pay. The HOA board meeting is standing room only. Word has gotten out. Neighbors cram into the Rosewood Heights Community Center. Some curious, others skeptical. A few nervously clutching printed copies of the bylaws. Amara sits in the second row, calm on the outside, but inside, her nerves are a live wire. Tasha is on her left, gripping her arm for silent support. On her right sits the teenage boy, Jaden, with a ball cap pulled low, face half hidden in his hoodie. The room buzzes with low murmurs until the double doors swing open. Douglas Dalton walks in like a man taking the stage. Khaki starched, white HOA logo polo pristine. He strides to the front like he owns every square foot of carpet. Technically, he doesn't, but try telling him that. "Good evening, everyone," he says smoothly, tapping the mic. "Thank you for coming to this month's meeting. I know some of you have concerns, and we'll be happy to address those during the public comment portion, within reason, of course." He chuckles. A few others do too. The sound makes Amara's skin crawl. The meeting drones on budget updates, landscaping plans, a new playground proposal, until Dalton finally says, "Now, I understand Ms. Amara James has a grievance to present." "Ms. James." She stands, clears her throat. Every eye shifts to her, but she doesn't flinch. Her voice is steady. "My car was towed from my own driveway. No prior warning, no due process. I've asked for documentation and received nothing. I've also learned that multiple residents of color in this community have experienced the same pattern of selective enforcement." Dalton leans back in his chair, arms folded like a king on his throne. "Ms. James, the HOA enforces rules equally. If certain individuals feel targeted, that may be due to their own behavior, not bias." A few heads nod in agreement. The rest are still, watching. "I'd like to present video evidence," Amara continues. "Footage from a security camera on community property, taken the day my car was towed." Dalton straightens, a flicker of irritation behind his smile. "That footage is private. Unauthorized use of it could result in legal consequences." "I didn't get it from the HOA," she replies coolly. "I got it from someone whose father saves off-site backups. You know, just in case of corruption or deletion." She gestures to Jaden, who pulls out his phone and casts the video onto the wall monitor. The room falls silent. Grainy black and white footage plays. Amara's driveway, her Camry, a tow truck pulling in. Micah, small, unmistakable, climbs into the back seat. He's visible, obvious. No one checks. The truck drives off, child still inside. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Dalton sits frozen, color draining from his face. "You towed a car," Amara says, "with a 6-year-old child still inside. That's not a violation. That's a crime. Dalton opens his mouth, but she cuts him off. I already spoke with my lawyer. The police have the footage. There's an active investigation. And guess what? The towing company said you gave the direct order. Said the car was a repeat offender, and you wanted it dealt with. Murmurs rise. A man in the back says, Jesus? Someone else whispers, is this real? Child endangerment. Amara says, louder now. You abused your authority, used it to harass residents, and put a child in danger because you couldn't stand seeing people like me living next door. Dalton tries to recover. This is outrageous. You're done, she says flatly, and this room knows it. She turns to the audience. How many of you have gotten fines for things your white neighbors haven't? Towing, noise complaints, threats of liens over grass height? Stand up if you have. A moment, then one woman rises, then another, and another, black, brown, Latino. One by one, a dozen residents stand silently, like a wave. Dalton's voice cracks. This is a smear campaign. No, Amara says. This is accountability. She steps back. The board stares at Dalton. The crowd is restless now. Some shouting questions, others filming on their phones. For the first time since she moved into Rosewood Heights, Amara watches Dalton sweat. He's not in control anymore, and he knows it. Douglas Dalton doesn't go down quietly. The meeting erupts after Amara's bombshell, voices clashing in a chaotic chorus. Phones are recording. Eyes are locked on the monitor replaying the footage. But Dalton stands, gripping the edge of the podium like it's the only thing keeping him upright. I want that video removed immediately, he shouts. This is illegally obtained. This is defamation. Amara doesn't flinch. It's called evidence. You endangered my child. He points a trembling finger at her. You think you can smear my name because you don't like being held to the same standards as everyone else? You people. The room falls silent. You people. The phrase hangs in the air like smoke from a bomb. A woman in the front row gasps. A man in the back lowers his phone, wide-eyed. Amara stares at him, deadpan. Say that again. Dalton's mouth opens, but no sound comes out. His face is flushed, red and sweating. The HOA vice president, a meek man named Collins who's always hidden in Dalton's shadow, finally speaks. Doug, maybe you should sit down. Dalton whirls on him. Don't you dare. You've seen what's been happening. You know how these people, how they let their yards go, their music, the cars. They were bringing down property values. A beat of silence. And then, quietly, Collins speaks again. That sounds like discrimination. Dalton lunges toward the mic, trying to seize control. This is a setup. She manipulated that footage, or paid that kid to fabricate it. He gestures wildly toward Jaden, who instinctively steps back. But someone else is already moving through the crowd. Officer Ramirez. Amara didn't expect him tonight, but he called her just hours earlier after she submitted the footage and filed the report. He said they'd need to look into it. She never imagined he'd show up here. The uniform silences the room. He holds up a folder. Douglas Dalton, he says, calm and firm. You are under investigation for contributing to the endangerment of a minor, unlawful towing practices, and targeted harassment under Civil Code 16 to 14.70. Dalton stares like he's been shot. This is absurd. This is a witch hunt. Ramirez continues, undeterred. We've spoken to Premier Towing. They confirmed the directive came from you personally, on more than one occasion. And based on prior complaints from residents, a pattern of selective enforcement has been established. Your HOA emails are also under subpoena. A ripple goes through the crowd. Emails? Ramirez turns to the board. We've already obtained preliminary communications. Some of those include racially coded language used to justify actions taken against specific residents. Dalton's voice is hoarse now. You can't prove anything. A soft, clear voice rings out. Actually, I can. Everyone turns. It's Mrs. Ellington. 82, wheelchair-bound, white as porcelain, and the longest-tenured resident in Rosewood Heights. Her presence alone carries weight, but it's the folder in her lap that draws attention. She clears her throat. I used to be HOA secretary. I still get copies of the email listserv. Doug didn't realize the forwarding rule was still active. She holds up a sheaf of printed emails, her hand steady. In this one, she says. He refers to Ms. James's house as that jungle front yard and warns the board to nip it in the bud before the community turns into a ghetto. Gasps ripple like aftershocks. A woman across the room covers her mouth. And here's another, Mrs. Ellington says, flipping the page. Refers to Tasha Robinson's holiday decorations as urban clutter. She looks directly at Amara. I was afraid to speak up. I'm sorry for that. But not anymore. Dalton is frozen in place. His face is blank. No smugness. No spin. Just a man watching his empire collapse. Amara steps forward, voice low and controlled. You thought you could bully people into silence. That we'd take it. That no one would believe us. She turns to the crowd. Look around. We believed each other. That's all it took. Ramirez walks toward Dalton slowly. We'll need you to come with us for questioning. You can't, Dalton stammers. I built this community. No, Amara says. You poisoned it. He's let out in handcuffs. Phones capture every step. Outside, the press is already gathering. Someone must have tipped them off. Flashes go off as the squad car pulls away. By morning, HOA president arrested for child endangerment and racial harassment will be all over the news. Inside the community center, there's a stunned silence. Then, slowly, someone begins to clap. Tasha. Then Jaden. Then the whole room. It isn't just applause, it's release. Relief. Justice in real time. Amara exhales, her eyes wet, her shoulders lighter than they've felt in months. The tables haven't just turned. They've flipped and crushed everything underneath. The HOA president's house goes up for sale within the month. No farewell note. No apology. Just a white for sale sign stabbing the lawn like a silent confession. The once pristine hedges are overgrown now, paint peeling from the porch rails. No one's maintaining it. No one dares to. Douglas Dalton lost everything. His title, his standing, his job at the real estate firm that once bragged about his flawless community management. Turns out, being the face of a racially charged scandal that made national headlines doesn't look good on a resume. He pleaded not guilty at first. Blamed the towing company. Blamed the media circus. Even blamed Amara for staging a child in the car. But that defense crumbled once the full email trail was released. Dozens of messages, each one more explicit than the last. Slurs hidden behind code words. Targeted violations. A spreadsheet color-coded by race. They called it the Neighborhood Purity List. That broke the internet. By the time his trial date was set, Dalton was unemployable. Publicly disgraced. Even the old guard in Rosewood Heights, the ones who used to chuckle at his jokes, refused to speak his name. Amara never celebrated in public. But inside, she did. Not for vengeance. For Micah. Because he's sleeping through the night again. No more nightmares. No more flinching at the sound of trucks. He laughs like a kid again. Fully, loudly. The way he did before. Every night, Amara tucks him in and reminds herself. You fought for this. You won this. The HOA board has changed too. New elections were held within 6 weeks of Dalton's arrest. This time, residents showed up in droves. The turnout was historic. Amara, to her own surprise, was voted in as vice president. Tasha joined as treasurer. Even Mrs. Ellington returned to serve in an honorary advisory role. They started with the small things, fairness in enforcement, transparency in meetings. But slowly, the bigger shifts began. Revising outdated bylaws, inviting diverse speakers, organizing community events that actually welcomed everyone. One warm spring morning, Amara walks through the neighborhood with Micah skipping beside her. They pass the new community garden, once Dalton's pet peeve, and she sees Collins planting tomatoes beside a young black couple who just moved in. He stands when he sees her. Ms. James, he says softly, clearing his throat. I wanted to say, I didn't know how bad it was. I looked the other way for too long. I'm sorry. She nods. Not smiling, not scowling, just real. Just don't look away again, she says. He nods back. I won't. Later that week, Micah brings home a crayon drawing from school. It's their house. Their real house, with their car in the driveway, a sun overhead, and little stick figure people smiling wide. Is that us? She asks. Yeah, he says, beaming. And look, no trucks. She stares at the picture, then folds it gently and presses it to her heart. Because for the first time since moving into Rosewood Heights, her peace isn't borrowed. It isn't conditional. It isn't a mask she wears to make others comfortable. It's earned, hard-fought, uneven, painful, but real. And she'll protect it with everything she's got. Because in a world that tried to silence her, she made them listen. In a neighborhood that tried to erase her, she became unforgettable. And in the face of injustice, she didn't just survive. She changed the rules.